everyone, welcome back to Teenager Therapy. I'm Gael.
I'm Thomas.
I'm Kayla.
And welcome back to another episode. I think this is the first episode of September, and there's some big announcement this September. And also, this is the September where it's our 5-year anniversary of doing Teenager Therapy, so that's coming up soon.
Crazy.
It's quite a long time coming. We'll find out what our big learnings are after doing this for 5 years. It's interesting to see that we captured like this point of a lot of maturement and growth over the last 5 years. But do you think that growth, that like maturement slows down or accelerates even more from like 20 to 25? Because I feel like from 15 to 20 it's like a lot, but is it as much from 20 to 25?
Well, we wouldn't know because we all just turned 20 this year.
Well, I need hypothesis, guys. I need.
I mean, I'm sure because that's when you gotta start figuring out your finances and your career stuff.
Yeah, I think it's like different types of maturity, because I think when you're like 15 and then going into 20, for the most part, you have no choice but to mature. Like, you can't be a 15-year-old stuck in a 20-year-old's body, you know? Like, I think it's more forced when you're younger. Whereas, like, 20 to 25, I feel like everybody has, like, different levels of maturement, if that makes sense.
So that's when it's really up to you. Because you totally could be a 20-year-old stuck in a 25-year-old's body. And one day you wake up and you're 25 and you realize, I'm like at the same level as a 20-year-old.
I don't know. I've only been 20 a few months, so... But I'm just so mature already. I've gained so much wisdom.
I mean...
Right. Yes.
Well, I guess, or not even go, or like... I guess since we're all 20, do you guys feel different than from when... Not even like physical, but like mentally. From when you were 19?
Well, I don't want to say it's because I turned 20, but I felt it even being in New York. And I think a big part of that was just because I was so independent and I had so much freedom, and I really trusted myself there. And because of that, I do feel more mature and just wiser than my 19-year-old self, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's just the experiences leading up to 20. That is what is shifting me.
Maturing. I feel like I've always said on the podcast that I feel a little more mature than I think I should be at this age. Well, I remember feeling that when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, being like, okay, in a few years, I think I'll be fine. In a few years, I think I'll be fine. And now I'm 20, and I think that feeling is still there of feeling like I can't relate in a lot of ways to like a lot of people my age. But I'm hopeful that by 22, like right after people graduate college, I think it's gonna level out a lot more. Just because of the unique experience of not going to college and working, and I guess also the immigrant experience of having to provide for your household even though you're still young, and having to like be like self-sufficient in every aspect, has kind of made being independent and mature and trusting myself the norm, I suppose, or like there's like no other option. And so I feel like I'm mature. But then again, I also journaled about this a couple months ago of feeling like I portray this version of myself to the outside world as being very mature, and it's like it feels like an illusion of just this mature person going throughout the world that's independent and self-sufficient, but still feeling very much like a kid on the inside. And I don't really feel like an adult, which is weird because I'm doing a lot of adult things, but I don't really feel like that. That feels like an act.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I do think on the outside you have a very professional, business-esque, mature, image. But when I think of you guys, I feel like I in the best way possible. I see just a little curious kid, and like I attach that with your personality, and I think you can have both. I just yeah, at your core, I think you're just a silly, goofy child.
Girl, I was very childlike.
Very in the best way possible.
I agree. That's what I journal about. Exactly that. Is that like, yeah, why do I keep, like, to the outside world I portray this confident like person, but inside is just the complete opposite. I've always wondered, I don't know how I feel about that yet.
Do you think if you portray yourself as something else other than mature, it'll like take away your credibility or something?
I think there's that fear of I think I think I want to be taken seriously. I think sometimes I forget that I'm younger than I am, and so it's like a weird dilemma when I present myself to people versus how I feel versus how I want to be portrayed and presented to others. And so I don't know if I think that's the thing though that I do notice is that I think I am still very childlike in a lot of ways and very young spirited, but I don't know if that's being young spirited or if that's just immature in a lot of ways, sometimes that gets me. I'm like, okay, yes, I portray myself as this thing, but I feel like most of my close friends have this perception of me being just very like kiddish, childish, I guess. And so then I think, is that a bad thing? Two, should that innermost version of yourself mature alongside the exterior image you portray to the world? Or is there always a balance of everyone is portraying this professional image, but deep down everyone feels young and feels that youthfulness inside them, if that makes sense? Like when you guys are 23, 24, 25, will your exterior image and your interior perception be aligned, or will it always feel like who you portray to the world is always a more mature, more presentable version than who you really are?
At my core, I'm just a very unserious person. Like, I'm not professional in any aspect, and I don't like to take myself too seriously. I don't want other people to take me too seriously, so Gael, he's very good at the whole mature image thing, and I am not. Like, I really am not, and I don't mind it too much. Like, I think it's just who I am, and I embrace it. But as I age and I get to 25, maybe that'll change, but I don't know. That just doesn't really feel like me, or really something that I'm concerned about at this moment.
I remember as a kid, or like not as a kid, but like maybe middle school or something, just hearing adults or like teachers be like, "Oh my god, you're so mature. You're so mature for your age." I was like, "Thanks." I guess like I never really knew like how to like take that, cause
honestly, yeah, you've always been very mature in my opinion.
like I don't know how to take that.
You were just always on top of your shit. It's true. It's true.
I mean, and that's weird because that's people's perception of me, but how Gael feels, I feel like I'm a very silly person.
You are a very silly person.
So I'm like, I don't think I'm like too mature.
I think it just depends on the way you look at maturity, because in an academic setting, maturity just means being like on top of everything and organized and all of that. But you as a person, your humor is so immature. It's crazy.
Okay, but the thing is, there's also a difference between immature. Wait, how I perceive it is there's a difference between immature and silly slash childlike slash.
I think it's a
etc.
little immature, which isn't a bad thing.
No, I view it as a bad thing.
Well, don't.
What do you view it as then?
I think immaturity is a natural part of someone's growth. Like everyone is immature. And I think everyone should be immature. I don't like that everyone tries too hard to be serious or wants to be perceived as this really mature person. Like it's good that you want to be, and it's good to mature, and you can't always stay immature and stuff, but I don't think it's a bad thing to be immature, especially since we're only 20. I think this is the time for us to be a little silly, for us to not take things too seriously. But yeah, I mean, the way you carry yourself, the way you like joke about things, it's immature, but it's not bad. It's funny. Like I enjoy it. I enjoy it because I share the same humor. But I don't want you to take that,
Yeah.
like
No.
it's
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we're all, everybody here in this room,
I think we're all immature.
I think
yeah.
we're all immature.
I think we're
and I think,
mature and immature, like both in a lot of different
yeah,
ways.
and I feel like that's what grounds us too. Because like you can't be serious all the time. You can't be business all the time.
Yeah,
That's just
and you also can't be silly all the time either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
exactly. So I feel like we're all a little
It's just-
silly.
But it's odd because sometimes I interact with other people that are my age and they're just not as silly. They're not as like kiddish, as childish as like the way I am, the way we are.
Really,
And
I
it's
was
moments-
expecting the opposite.
And it's moments like that where I'm like, whoa, like I don't know, maybe I just don't know them well enough, but I just feel like they are actually mature.
I really get that, and I think especially at school
Yeah.
is where I see that. I think at school it's very hard for me to find other people that are also not taking class, or this might sound bad, but like, they're not taking a class too seriously. They're there just to like have fun, make friends. And it makes me question myself too, because I'm like, am I behind? Am I like, is this going to affect my career somehow? I don't really know. And so it definitely makes me question
Nah,
myself
it's only because
sometimes.
we're business students and we're surrounded by a bunch of business students who really do, take themselves very seriously. But trust me, a majority of the students, they aren't trying too hard. It's hard at USC because it's very prestigious, so people tend to avoid appearing immature. But at the same time, like I really do come across very immature people. Like I feel like we're more mature than most of the people our age. Like I'm sorry, I was a little surprised when you said the opposite, because I felt that we are a little more mature than most.
I would say so.
What does that
But
mean?
you just said,
What does that mean though?
No, like I think we're still like immature, but
yeah.
I think we're still more mature than most people
In what
in terms of
aspects?
like emotional.
So you
At
think
least.
we're more mature and immature?
Oh my god, wait. Is it possible to have both?
I mean, I'm sure it is. I'm just trying to like follow your
Yeah. Anyways, keep going.
Oh no, I mean that was it. I've been around a lot of people our age and they're immature, but it's not a bad thing. It's kind of what I would expect. Yeah.
I don't know. It gets to me. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't put so much thought into it. But there's times where I just feel like a child. Like when I interact with people, I just feel like deep down inside, I feel like a little kid interacting with these people that genuinely seem like they are mature and they got their shit together, and they're like have this sense of, I don't know, adultness to them that I could fake maybe, but maybe I don't necessarily feel.
What is the adultness you're talking about?
I mean, maybe honestly it's just in the way, and maybe it's just differences in humor. Some people are just a lot more serious, and maybe that's why I feel that. And maybe I associate with like silliness with maturement, when it really, like, humor is subjective and you can't just make such broad assumptions just based on if someone is very silly and jokes around a lot but professionally or still has their own responsibilities, versus someone who doesn't really have that type of humor and they're more like cool-headed, level-headed, and maybe doesn't take their responsibilities as serious or whatnot, or they do regardless. It's just
I mean, I was just gonna say, I feel like we're all very expressive people, and because of that, it might seem more immature than mature. Because adults, I mean, I've always seen adults as very serious, and they don't express themselves the way that, like, you know, people our age do. Wait, we're adults, but you know what I mean. So I don't know. Sometimes I just think that we're just a little more expressive, like outwardly expressive, and because of that, we seem immature. Or like other people, they aren't as expressive, so we are like, oh, they're more mature and an adult, but really they're just not that expressive.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like most adults we come across, they have, or I don't know what their personality is really, but I don't know. I don't think I would ever want to like leave my silliness behind.
That's what I'm saying. I think it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel
no,
you.
and this reminds me of an interaction that I had 2 days ago maybe, but I became friends with a professor without even meaning to. And it's because they had a genuine personality. They were expressive and they were silly. Of all things, they were being silly and fun. And it was so rare for me to see that I forget, like, wait, you can be older and still like make fun of things, or, you know, say silly things that don't really mean anything, you know? And I think just having that conversation with that person just made me feel a lot better with myself too, with like my doubts of like, you know, am I too mature, whatever. I mean, I think you can have both. You can be older and still be immature. Like,
yeah,
it's completely fine, I think.
It's such a rare thing to see an adult act the way that you do, because I'm like, wait, what? Like, I can get along with a 30-year-old? Like, what?
No, it was insane. I was very surprised at how well we were getting along, to the point where like I would hang out with you.
Yeah.
And I think it's just refreshing to see that, you know? And I think a lot of people, obviously, like, hello, capitalism, whatever. You need to have a professional exterior. You need to, you know, get XYZ done, whatever. But I don't know. I do wonder, too, like, how many people are actually just, you know, they're not like that in real life.
Yeah.
That's not who they are.
I think it's so sad that people lose a bit of their personality when they grow up, because they kind of have no other choice but to, since they work in such professional settings, or they just have to sacrifice it for whatever reasons. But I really hope that we never have to do that, because like that's just sad.
I think I just have I don't know if it's an ego or insecurity problem with being, I don't know where the need came from to be perceived as mature. Maybe it's because everyone always tells you you're so mature for your age, that you start to feel like you need to be mature for your age, or you won't be as taken seriously or impressive to people older than you or whatnot. But I think now I just get in my head a lot, and even when friends are like, oh yeah, you're still like very childish at heart, it's like, that's how I want to be. That's how I would like to be perceived. I hope I could always be youthful at heart. But even though that's what I would want for myself, there's still that sense of feeling like my ego is attacked, or like my perception is like, oh, I shouldn't do that. Like, I don't want to be perceived in that way. Even though it's what would make me happy, there's like that fight with myself of not wanting to be perceived as childlike or whatnot, and display a more reliable, confident version of
When does this
myself.
happen? Like, when is it?
I think a lot of my friends have that perception of me, and
No,
in
like,
part, like exactly, like when does, sorry, what?
like, when does this urge to be more professional appearing come from? Like,
Mm,
is it just like around your friends?
I mean, in this case, I'm just talking about my friends, around my friends. I think when I think about how my friends perceive me and what they would
You want to
how
have a more mature professional persona?
how yeah how I would say they describe me, I think a lot of them would say they describe me as um very immature, very, what's the word? Yeah, I guess just very immature, very childish, kind of klutzy, I guess, which is weird because I think at times I play into that a lot because it feels almost like a coping mechanism for how serious I feel like I've had to be my whole life. Because since for most of my childhood, I think I had to play up this persona of being very mature for my age, being like, taking care of like the real world needs and what needs to be taken care of, and I got to make sure things get done, and having to present myself so seriously to others. It feels like when I'm with my friends, there's that chance to let go and like be as childlike as I want. But then I feel like deep down I have that negative perception that that's not okay either. And like, I guess when friends reinforce that's how they describe me, I'm like, there's a bit of that insecurity of like embarrassment of like, maybe I've overdone it, maybe I need to settle down and cool off and like, I don't know, be boring, I guess. That's how I imagine it. Like, just be like, oh, lose my sparkle, my wings.
So you like, so you do or you don't like it when people, or when your friends call you
I don't know.
childlike?
There's like
I
that
feel
inner
like we
battle.
keep going back and forth with our statements. We're like, oh,
Yeah. Or I'm just confused if you
episode
like
of
or don't like
self-discovery, I'm
it.
sorry,
Yeah.
but
no, it's
that's the
fine.
thing. It's like there's that inner battle of I wish I could be comfortably immature, and I know that's how I act, but deep down inside there's a weird like fight against it of like oh, thank you, like I do enjoy it because I know I want to live my life forever being able to be youthful and never lose that like aspect about myself. But whether it's because of my own expectations or societal expectations, I feel like it's wrong. And so when someone like my friends say, yeah, I would describe you as very childlike, very curious, very like immature, I think my soul is like, oh, like, yeah, that I'm glad, like that makes me happy. But my mind is still trying to rationalize it as like, wait, no, that's bad. I need to be more mature because I shouldn't be like that. That's why I mean that it's like both good and bad. There's like two battles going on.
I feel like when you're with your friends though, that side just naturally comes out. Because how are you going to be,
I know,
quote unquote,
but
mature?
sometimes
with
I
your
just don't know if I
friends?
like that side. And I don't know where that comes from. I don't know what part of myself doesn't like that side or why I don't like it. And if it's a genuine dislike or it's just like an insecurity and like a self-protecting coping mechanism, I guess. That's what I need to figure out. It's like it naturally comes out, but even when it does, I'm just like, oh, I shouldn't be acting like this. Like, I'm too grown to be acting like this. I need to grow up. I need to pick up the pace. I feel like I'm way behind everyone else, and everyone else sees me as this kid when I don't like that. I need to be like mature.
Is it an ego thing?
I think so. I think part of it comes from feeling like if I'm seen as immature or childlike or like, oh, you're so like youthful and youth spirited, I see that as that means you feel like you're more mature and that you might be more, you know, less childlike, which means you are the one that's like taking care of me, or you have some sort of like, I guess some, there's like the power dynamic that like if you're the most mature one, you're the one that takes care of everyone. And I like, I think again, there's that just that fucking savior complex of feeling like that's my role. And so when I'm seen as like the childlike, curious, whatever it might be, immature one, in my mind that registers as, oh, so people probably feel like they need to take care of me. Like they're the ones that need like, okay, like I'll handle the logistics, I'll handle the responsibilities, because you're like this like irresponsible, immature kid that like, can't do that into that.
Maybe because that's how you see them. Is that how you see them?
See them as what?
Like if your friend is being immature or childish, whatever, is that how you see them?
Yeah, it feels like I have responsibilities that are placed on me because I feel like I can't rely on them.
Well,
Wait, that changes how-
some things.
That changes.
Changes what?
Because I didn't know that.
Personally, for me, if my friend is being immature or childish, like I don't feel the urge to have to take care of them. I don't feel a sense of responsibility over them. Like I still feel like we're equals, and I think for you see it in a like there's someone who needs to be taken care of, or like if someone is being immature, then that person needs to be taken care of.
Kayla, I feel like you've talked about how you feel that
with
before.
immaturity.
With like feeling like you also like you're like, oh, you have to be the mature one because you have to be the responsible one and you have to do that.
Wait.
Oh, I guess I didn't connect the dots with like it's not like personality based, it's more so like actions, if that makes sense. Like if somebody's being silly and goofy, like that's, I don't take that as a direct correlation that they need my help or like now I'm responsible for them. I attach those characteristics to their personality versus like what they're doing on the outside, if that makes any sense. Do you guys know what I mean? Like if
give us an example maybe.
Okay. Here, this might be a bad example, but like if somebody, Kyle, if you say like a funny, if you're just being silly the whole day, right? Like you're just being a silly little goofball, saying jokes left and right, whatever. I don't take that as like, great, now I need to like step up to the plate and buy everyone dinner or like buy him dinner, you know? I don't correlate those traits with me having to step up. When I'm talking about immaturity and childlike whatever curiosity, I attach that to personality. Whereas when I say I feel like I have to take care of somebody, that's because I feel like they're not pulling their own weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I think, Kyle, you view it differently, where it's like even if it is personality, you feel that way.
I'm not sure yet what the characteristics of me feeling this way are, but I think there's definitely an image problem where there's that subconscious bias of feeling like, oh, you get, and maybe this is just honestly happens, it's just you can't avoid it, that if you present as more serious and have this image of professionalism or maturity or whatever it is, you will be taken more seriously. And at the end of the day, like people will treat you differently than if you yourself portray yourself as like very loose going, silly, goofy, whatever. I think naturally people do take you less seriously. But then maybe that's just me that does that and no one else does that. But I think there's that, like, you meet someone new and it's just how first impressions go. You meet someone new and they're like really goofy and really silly and really whatever, you're gonna feel like, oh, they must not be like a very serious, professional, mature person. Whereas you meet someone that's very like cool-headed, level, it's still jokes, but like a little more toned down. You perceive them as, at least I perceive them as, oh, okay, like they're a mature, responsible person. Um,
Hmm. I do notice that your pattern with your savior complex, where in relationships and friendships you just take on this responsibility to go out of your way to help them and like save them even when they're not asking for it. Like you just do it on your own. I think
maybe that's imposing my own judgment
I think so.
and me projecting.
I think
Because
so.
I think that's what I'm like. I think it definitely is projecting in that sense of, I try not to show my silliness because I feel like people will then perceive me as less capable than if I act mature and serious. And so when I see others act like that, I project my own insecurities, and maybe I don't have the confidence to not let the perceptions of others affect my own understanding of my competence. And so I can't get over that mental block of like, oh, I could act silly and goofy, but I know deep inside that I'm still responsible and mature, and so I don't need your validation to feel like you're gonna take me less seriously. So yeah, it all stems back to that.
Hmm.
So I think about it now that we're in my 20s. I'm like, how am I supposed to act? How should I act? How does a 20-year-old act? And again, it's just, I think, because for far too long I've tried to control it instead of just
Living your life.
live myself and be myself, and
Yeah.
not let the opinions and the perceptions of others affect my own perception of myself. So I think in my 20s, that's what I'm trying to figure out is, who am I and how do I feel comfortable with myself and not let the perceptions and perceived perceptions of others get to me and it affect my own behavior.
Yeah. I'm hoping that's just something you outgrow, because I feel myself slowly outgrowing it. I don't know if there's other factors, but I've I just don't really care as much about what other people think. And I think that's just because I feel very comfortable with myself, and because I feel very comfortable with myself, I don't really need anybody else to validate my existence for me. And yeah, I think that's just like growing up and you just spend so much time by yourself, and you kind of get to that point where you're just it's so tiring to keep on being self-deprecating and like hate yourself and pick out all the little flaws in yourself, because it doesn't do you any good. And so I don't know, I guess I just experienced this little shift in my life where like, why am I gonna be so hard on myself? And I don't know, I really try my best to embrace like my character, and because of that I think that I feel comfortable. But I don't know, I feel like being comfortable with yourself is something that everyone finds on their own, so I don't really have like a tip for y'all.
How to?
A little how to, a little tut, a little tut. No tutorial. I really do think that people somehow, some way, they just find their way to just accept themselves for who they are, and once that happens, you just start caring less about what other people think. And I'm experiencing that, which is so good. Oh my god, last year, or freshman and sophomore year of college, I'm at this new school surrounded by like people that I'm not used to being surrounded with. Obviously, high school was very different. So I just felt so out of place all the time. Not to say I don't feel out of place anymore, but now I just accept that I'm very different from most of like my other business, students, classmates, whatever. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I don't feel the need to conform or do anything to appease them.
Yeah, I guess I feel like I've never taken an act, or like recently I haven't actively thought about how I portray myself. Or I don't think I really think about how I portray myself. I sort of just portray.
I think that's a good thing. I don't think you
like,
really should obsess over how you portray yourself.
Yeah, and I think I've realized too, it's like, I mean, obviously when you first meet someone, you're sort of testing out the waters, seeing their personalities or whatever. But I think like when I meet somebody else just as unserious, it makes that friendship so much more rewarding. It just feels so much more fulfilling. Whereas like if I put on a professional, mature, business-esque persona and I like have a half-assed friendship, acquaintance even, and so I don't know, I just don't really think too much about it. I just am there.
You get that?
Yeah.
That's why I hate networking. I don't like
God, oh my God.
Networking is the worst thing ever. I would do anything but network. Cause it's just like, why? Like it's not me.
I get that. I mean, when it comes to like certain aspects of, business, like networking or I don't know, I think sometimes it's just unavoidable. Like it has to be done. It has to
Also,
be
Why
done.
networking doesn't have to be so like exploitative. Not to go on a tangent.
No, I agree
Yeah,
with that, but
I
I
agree
think
too.
in a lot of settings it is, and in a lot of settings it's very much give and take. What can you do for me? What can I do for you?
Especially at least at USC, that's just the culture.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would love to network with actual cool people and people I can have a real relationship with. That would be ideal. I just think that's more rare to come by nowadays.
For sure. But I need an ego death. Does anyone know where I can buy one? Where I can get one?
That's a psychedelic trip waiting to happen.
Thomas and I can help you.
Maybe that's the next step in this. Maybe that will solve all my issues.
I don't know, who would you... Oh, like, imagine a Gael after an ego death.
Yeah, I always imagine of that. And I think, honestly, I just imagine, like, a calm version of myself. Sometimes I'm like, am I silly or am I just being silly to, like, feel... I don't know who I am.
This is part of 20s. You have to question your identity.
Yeah, literally. That's why I'm like, how do I want to be perceived? How do I perceive myself? What kind of person do I want to become? Because I think it's like, yes, it's good to like not think about how you present yourself, but also maybe that is like what it means to grow as a person, is taking an active effort to think about how you present yourself now, if you're okay with that and if you want to change that. Because just because you're authentic doesn't mean you're a good person, an enjoyable person, like a positive, happy person. You could be as authentic as you want and be like a shitty ass person, and to say like, like that's just me showing up authentically. That's not. I don't think that goes in one-on-one. And so I think that's why I struggle with like, okay, yeah, I do want to show up authentically, but at the same time, I remind myself I have to be self-aware. And so, how can I be self-aware without falling too deep into, oh fuck, I need to control every aspect of every interaction and my image, and just what parts do I genuinely want to show to the world, and how can I feel more comfortable doing that?
There's definitely an extent to that.
To what part?
The like obsessing and trying to control everything. Because no, like I definitely agree. It's very good to want to be someone you're not, to like recognize that change and know that there's a certain person that you want to become, because that means you're growing. But I also think people are really harsh on themselves, especially someone like Gael, who need to relax a little bit and enjoy the time right now and just let it happen naturally instead of trying to do it overnight.
I guess so, yeah, huh? I'm like, I'm scared it won't happen. I need it to happen right now. What if I go years? But it just does naturally happen, I
Yeah.
suppose.
I mean, the urge is there. It's gonna like manifest itself sometime. It won't be now, and that's okay. Right now's the time to be silly, guys. That's the
Is it
takeaway.
though?
I
That's the
agree.
takeaway
I
from
mean,
this
if
conversation.
If you can't be silly now, when can you be silly?
That's what I always
I'm
think.
sorry.
Like I live my life just like if not now, when? So I do it now because I don't know when I can't anymore.
I think I just have to be okay with like, how can I be silly and mature and not feel like those are two things that shouldn't exist together?
I mean, I feel like you're already doing a good job of it. Like we you know, like we've acknowledged you're mature in a lot of professional settings, but you're also immature when you're around us. Like,
Yeah, and that's what I need to be okay with.
yeah,
Like accepting the fact that those two things can coexist, and it's not like silly equals bad. Professionalism equals good. The capitalist mindset. Silly equals bad.
Can you tell he's a CEO?
And it's just like, it's like, okay, silly equals good. Professionalism equals good. They can coexist. You don't have to pick. You can be both.
yeah.
And that's like the big like, oh, that makes sense. I get it
Immaturity
now.
isn't like a bad thing. It is in certain settings and scenarios, but overall,
It's a superpower.
being immature is your superpower.
That's your
So
superpower. Your mental illness is your superpower. Remember that.
nice one. Yeah. But I would just say try not to be so hard on yourself. I feel like Gael and Kayla, I feel like I know this, that you guys are so hard on yourselves, especially now more than ever. I don't know what that shift was, but you guys need to be nicer and just
Yeah.
exist for a little bit without your judgment.
Yeah.
Yum. 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 Well,
I need to do some more self-reflection.
so much self-acceptance. Like,
I
bitch,
think you
what
need
does that look
a
like?
shot.
Like, how can I be so
I'm 20.
20s?
A shot of your
A shot of wisdom, shot of maturity.
Yes. Sign me up on those.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a ginger shot.
They have them at Trader Joe's.
Nice.
Nice.
I need Kourtney Kardashian's gummies.
Let me mature.
Let me mature.
Wait, is that actually
Let
what
me
it's
ego
called?
death.
Oh.
I don't think
Well,
so.
if she came out with Let Me Psychedelics and it was like Let Me Ego Death, and you just take a Let Me.
You should go to Courtney.
Kourtney, I have an.
That's something
I have-
everyone would
Corny.
sell, like 100%.
Yeah. Well.
Did you say Air One?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They'd have like some like ego death gummy bears.
Yeah. It'd be in a glass little bottle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lion's mane. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Us talk about our feelings and offer very little practical solutions. But what can we do? Just
I feel like
self-accept.
I feel like when was it? Maybe senior year and freshman year, we were sharing so much wisdom. Or I don't know when.
Facts.
There was a time when we would just rant about our feelings and cry, and then there was a time when we would just give so much advice and
We
be
were
like,
enlightened.
we were like, we
Because
were
that's
enlightened.
because we grew from
Yeah,
like
and
when
then we're back
Oh, that's true,
to
we
just
grew
like
from it.
ranting.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
and-
because we're just going through so much change and we haven't quite grown from it. But then in 2 years, we'll be like,
yeah, and
enlightened.
right now we're in the process of it. I mean, how are we supposed to figure anything out?
yeah, no.
You guys are seeing us figuring it out. Like, did you see how much back and forth was going on in this
Sometimes
conversation?
I'm like, do you guys even know what the fuck we're talking about half the time?
no, I mean that's the thing. It's like we're in the process of it, and I know we're gonna reach the stage where we have the answers, or we think we have the answers, and then it's gonna happen again.
Yeah, I hope you guys were able to follow.
I hope so.
I hope so.
Sorry
too.
about that, you guys.
What's it going to be called
Sorry.
once you're no longer teenagers? Young adult therapy?
Adolescent care.
A little chuckle.
Nice one.
Y'all need to stop making that joke right now.
Everyone
You
has
guys
asked
will
us
see
that.
what will happen when we're no longer.
You will see. You have pushed us too far. You will see
You
what will
made us-
happen when we're no
You
longer
made us. Just know. We were pushed to do
You are
this.
fucking
Y'all
limits.
think you're so cute with that joke.
Well,
Literally.
look at what you've done.
Oh my god.
Bro, I got recognized at the beach the other day, so shout out to Vanessa.
Whoa.
Oh wow, really?
That's so cute.
Wait, Kayla.
I also. Oh my god. Wait. Yeah. Let me sit up.
Ooh.
I also got recognized at work of all
What?
places. I was at my reception, just diddly daddling away, and this, I'm assuming freshman, pretty sure you're a freshman. He was like, "What's your name?" And I was like, "Caleb." And he was like, "Oh, are you from Teenager Therapy?" And I was taken aback because I think like I haven't gotten that. Are you a cast?
I'm so sorry.
I think
Yeah.
Moral of the story, he was super sweet and it seemed like he was so sincere and he was just the cutest little person ever.
Oh.
He was so sweet. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to see you again. I have been seeing you a lot, so yeah.
So cute.
It was very sweet. That made my week, really, month even. It was really sweet.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for listening, for talking to us, for coming up to us. And make sure you tune in to next episode. It's a very, very big one. All right. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.